using a GLP will allow you to, it's like riding a bike with training wheels. Like you are finally able to make decisions regarding food without feeling like there's a bunch of like, there's a war going on around you. You can actually like make clear, focused and directed decisions around food. And actually like it's a time period to learn how to properly diet and build a sustainable lifestyle and it feel in control. If that makes sense.
You were speaking about how identity is really closely tied to bodybuilding and the sport, and people feel really lost because they tie so much of their identity to it. And I think people do the same thing also outside of bodybuilding as well, just with the kind of the gym in general,
100%.
Making a big part of who they are, the gym. And if they don't have the gym, they really unravel at the source. I spoke to Dylan Hummel recently, and he said it's almost like a prerequisite specifically for men as male athletes that they have to have something outside of the gym, bodybuilding. He didn't care if you played with Legos. It didn't matter to him. Like, so, as long as you had like something outside of that, that didn't subtract whenever it wasn't there.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I think it gets to be like a very like unhealthy relationship with the gym. Like I see it with guys a lot of the time where they just absolutely spiral. If I tell them like, hey, you're sick, you need to take a day off. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, you don't have the capacity for this right now. Like, I think there's a lot of like, and I have people too that push back on me when I'm like, hey, you're training 5 days a week and you can't handle that with, you know, the workload that you have. I need you to scale it back to 4. They're like, what do you mean? Like, I'm not going to make any progress anymore. I find that a lot of people, once they like detach that, there's just so much like stress that's relieved once that happens. I usually see them make so much more progress once that happens.
Yeah, a large part of our job is stress mitigation. I think that's been the biggest revolving theme that I've learned in the past probably 2 years, is how it seems as if a majority of problems just lead back to stress. And not only do they lead back to stress, they're at the source of unnecessary stress. And that being one of them, where it sounds so counterintuitive to tell people that, hey, if you just take a little bit off, you just kind of rear back on the gas a little bit more, you're going to make so much more progress. You're going to sleep better. You're going to look better. Your lifts are going to go through the roof. You're going to digest your food better. And that is so hard for so many people to process and go through.
Yeah. I think too, like, I'm almost getting to the point with like, everyone talks about like stress management and all the like being able to like pull back and stuff like that. Yes, I do think like a lot of people do need to pull back, but I think less of like as a like permanent solution, because there's so many things we can't remove from our life. It's really being able to like almost it's the same thing as like training, where we like continue to like build, we get stronger over time. Like we need to become more resilient to stress versus looking for every possible opportunity to like take it off our plate. Because I think a lot of the things that we're like quote unquote stressed out about, they're first world problems, like more often than not. Like they're really not stressors, you know. Like you're blessed to be able to, if you get up, go to the gym, go to your 9 to 5, you come home and you have a bed to sleep in, you're doing pretty damn good.
I 100% agree. Going back to the part where you were talking about identity and growth, you made a post talking about, I really liked it too, how you made your best progress when you stopped calling yourself a bodybuilder. What changed for you there? Like, what does that mean to you?
To me, that means that not to get like morbid, but like we have a very finite career in bodybuilding. Like more likely than not, I'm hanging this up by the time I'm 35. So I've probably got 7 years left at most. Like you really like, what would I do if I defined my entire life based on a, 12-year career part of my life? That I was just like, that would be really silly to hang my entire identity on that. And there's so much more. So once I like kind of took that like stress off, I'm like, hey, yes, I love this. Yes, I would like am still aiming to, I have high aspirations. This like I aim to turn pro this year. But just pulling that off me, like it doesn't define me whether I do this or not. I am enough as I am. It really just allowed me to actually enjoy training again, was the biggest thing. Like I dreaded training for probably the better part of the like probably up until like, I would honestly say that like the prep that I had last year. So that started in like February of last year. About 2 years prior to that, I dreaded going to the gym every day. Like it was not fun. It felt like a job. It was not something I enjoyed anymore. And once I had that shift in identity, it was like, hey, this is fun. I get to do this every day. Like this is awesome.
What was there was that just more like a mental shift that you did to get you there? Because I hear a lot of people, really seasoned bodybuilders, talk about how they have this love for training and grit, and it almost makes you feel weird if you don't love going to the gym, or you go through phases of, I don't really love this right now. Like, does that make me insufficient? Does that make me not a good bodybuilder? Like, what was that shift like for you, or what happened?
That's a great question. I'm trying to think back of that time. I think it was really too like I had taken, probably 2 years off from competing. So it was very much like I had not seen the fruit. I mean, I had seen, like, I knew I had made progress, but I guess I hadn't like really seen how much progress I made until I was kind of at that like 4, 6 weeks out mark where I'm like, holy crap, I actually did something over the last 2 years. And so really being able to kind of hang my hat on that and like, okay, you can actually, recognize your achievement here. You did some good work regardless of the outcome that comes here in 4 weeks. To be able to hang my hat on that was probably the biggest thing. And I've never been someone that's good at like recognizing my achievements. So it's also just something that kind of over the last year I've been trying to do more. And that was one of those instances.
Well, speaking of seasoned bodybuilders, clearly you're pretty seasoned yourself with multiple shows on your belt, a lot of years left also in your career. Do you have any advice for younger bodybuilders, people who are just starting out, knowing what you know now? What would you tell someone early in their journey?
Just shut up and do the work. So many people, and I say this because I was one of those people who thought I knew everything, and the more I've grown, the more I figure out that I don't know. Also, on top of that, you don't need to know everything. You just need to give it time. We cannot just like white knuckle progress as much as we would like to think that we can. That we can, work harder to make that outcome happen. A lot of the time, it's just going to be completely nailing your plan for as long as you possibly can. And that's something I've seen too, like a lot of, like recently there's this controversy of like, what have people been saying? It's like sustainability of bodybuilding, how it's like not a sustainable thing. I honestly think it's really dumb if you look at it that way, because people hit their bodybuilding peak probably, like most people, guy I really like, Mike Nassif, he posted like the average like time it took someone to make, like get their pro card on his roster. And it was like, I think the quickest someone got their pro card was like 7 years, and like someone else it was like 15. I'm like, you do not like do that. You don't white knuckle that for 7 to 15 years. You have to find something that works for you for a long period of time, or you're just going to burn out and leave the sport, which I think is what happens to a lot of people, because they try to like have this hardcore approach that they cannot sustain. And so they never reach their like peak potential.
I love that aspect. Everybody's always arguing about silly little minute stuff like that, like what's sustainable, what's not sustainable, like bodybuilding's dumb, bodybuilding's cool, and they go back and forth. And people worry so much about other people, like poisons themselves. It's like they want to talk derogatory about it, and then they expect it to affect other people when it's really just inflicting on themselves. If bodybuilding isn't for you, if you don't think it's sustainable, if it's not a practice that you enjoy, I've seen this a lot recently, and it's kind of like a little war that's starting. You don't have to talk down on it. Like, you don't have to, just because it's not for you, maybe specifically, doesn't mean that it's dumb inherently. And then everybody who commits to it isn't sustainable, and they're extreme, and that they're weird people. Like, I think that's such a strange argument that people get into.
Yeah. There's a million ways to skin a cat. We can all get to the end goal at different ways. Ultimately, it's like, what route do you want to take? I've got friends that program things like completely different than I do. I don't tell them they're a moron for doing it. Do I agree with it? No, but everyone has their own approach to it, and we're all going to do what we want to at the end of the day. We all have free will.
To touch on your approach and some of your methods and how you do things, when you speak on readiness for prep specifically, or maybe even just getting somebody really, really lean, you had a great post about how you turn down people who are like 12 to 14 weeks out, like you don't like to do or won't do shotgun preps. What are the actual qualities, curves, and standards that give you the green light to prep somebody or push them through a serious fat loss phase?
Yeah, but I always like start out with lab work. If you're not healthy internally, you're just going to be fighting an uphill battle the whole way. So making sure that everything on your CMP, your lipids, your insulin sensitivity, adrenals, everything like that needs to be in check. If it'd be like, trying to run a marathon with ankle weights. That's not something I would ever want anyone to have to do. So just starting with basic like health. And also, I just don't want to have to figure out someone's body in 3 months. It takes longer than that. So that's just not something I want to subject someone to. I want to make sure that I build a good foundation with them. Usually most people too that come to me, they're probably too fat to even be close to that. I've had probably one instance where I even like considered like maybe this guy was ready. Like if someone has like a good like training background and they've been following something for a decent amount of time, then it's something maybe I consider. But most of the time, like I think it's just more conducive to the athlete to have a little patience. The stage is always going to be there, so why wouldn't you want to take the time, let your coach get to know you, so that they can deliver you the best outcome? Because I don't know about anyone else. I don't do this to lose. If it's me, myself competing or my athlete, I don't want to step up there any less than my best. And I'm not willing to take a chance on that. I would rather take a whole year and go at it again next season so that I can get the best outcome possible.
Do you think that people often underestimate just how much fat they have to lose, like how far they have to go?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I same thing happened to me my last prep. I really thought I was going to struggle to like reach my weight cap because first time I competed, I think my stage weight was like 189, like 188, somewhere around there. And after 3 years off, I was like, oh, 202. There's no way I'm like not going to be fighting to make that. And then I come in at like 194. I'm like, okay, I put on 6 pounds in 3 years. Like I still have almost 10 pounds to go before I even have to worry about that. You can always get leaner. It's going to be one of those things that most people will. I always plan in probably an extra 3-4 weeks than I usually anticipate, just because for any hiccups, and usually there's more to go than we think we need.
I even went through this back. I got the leanest I've ever been probably back in January. And I don't think I realized whenever I started the process just how far I had to go. And I take fat off people. Like I do this. And whenever I went through it, I remember I was like, oh, I'm 10 pounds. I'll get nice and lean. I was over 20 pounds down and I still probably had another solid, I would say 5 to 10 pounds to go before I was actually had like a dry, tight look to me. And I was like, holy crap. I didn't realize, for one, just how much fat I had to lose. And also you don't realize how much, how slow, I guess, muscle gets put on. Like when you peel it all back, you're like, oh my gosh, I have so much work to do afterwards. Like, people don't realize just how little of muscle frame they have.
Yeah. I've gotten a lot more conservative at like the rate at which I push people's weight up now, because I've just come to realize it like takes so much to like, there's way more to pull off than you think. So I'm like, I don't want you like blowing up, more than like 5-10 pounds in a 20-24 week off season, like even probably closer to like 5 to 7.
Whenever you take people through these phases of pushing them all the way up and taking them all the way back down, for your own coaching process, you spoke about adrenal health, insulin sensitivity, all these different markers that you look for to take them through these phases super efficiently. What markers do you look for specifically, or any really important ones for priming somebody for like a health phase before pushing for that fat loss, that growth? How does your own experience and standards set the tone for your own clients?
Yeah, first thing I usually like to audit with people is making sure gut health's in check. Most everything is metabolized and processed in the gut, all those like sex hormones. And most people have some sort of issue just from, again, this is just my like anecdotal experience looking at people. Most people, stress affects their digestion so much that there's usually some sort of insufficiency in the digestive pathway. That could be low stomach acidity, so we're not digesting food properly. Sometimes that can be accompanied with some sort of bacterial overgrowth, SIBO, H. pylori, things like that, because those usually just kind of come as twins, for lack of a better term. Could be something in the terms of like stress causing like liver dysfunctions. We have inadequate bile flow. We're not having adequate breakdown of fats. Those fats aren't being used to properly synthesize the sex hormones that we need. So starting there in the gut, like all those systems, I guess, first to make sure that everything looks good. And then, like you said, stress kind of leads back to everything. Starting there is usually kind of the prerequisites I like to take people through.
It's amazing to hear, because whenever a regular person hears all this probably sounds like the most outlandish thing ever, but that truly, you are the separator of coaches who take people just from, hey, you need to drop a few calories and then you'll lose weight, when you look at it through this completely different lens of, yeah, okay, we're going to drop a little bit of weight through some calories, but also we're going to enhance this, and this. And that's why the process is going to be so much smoother than anything you've ever done. Like, the hats off to the separator from the chicken and rice coaches. I love this term now that's been coined, to people like you who can look through this lens and actually walk this walk and take people through this journey that they didn't even know really existed before.
Yeah, I think it's something that like so many people don't realize is like what's stopping them, and it's often more often than not it's the reason they're not like making progress. I know like when I found it, like I had low stomach acid when I was going through my dietetic internship to become an RD. I was dealing with it like, and it was because I was super stressed out at the time. I was working like 50, 60 hours a week between my clinicals, and I was starting my coaching at that time. And I was just like, every time I ate, I would blow up like a balloon. I felt like massive, like sharp pains in my stomach. I was like, dude, what is going on? Like, help me figure it out. And I kid you not, as soon as we got that fixed, I probably lost like 10 pounds in 3 weeks when I had been like completely flatlined for the month prior. It like I don't think people realize how much of an inhibitor your gut health is on sustainable progress, and it's why most people are like, I'm so pissed off. I've lost a pound in the last 6 weeks, and then they quit. But it's because they're facing a massive, dam in their internal system.
I love this movement where it's going, the ability to help people. And I imagine being an RD helps with that as well. So you are very unique in your title of having that hands-on bodybuilder experience, being able to see through that gray lens of how to optimize bodies, having also the prerequisite education of being an RD. Do you feel like your bodybuilding experience enhances how you practice as an RD, or are there limitations when the two worlds kind of collide?
I don't see any limitations. I think if anything, it's kind of an added layer. It's funny because I felt like getting an RD was like such a massive waste of time when I first started coaching because it took so long. And I felt like, especially in the bodybuilding realm, for some reason, people have this like huge, I feel like, I don't know, agenda against dietitians. But I think some of it's warranted because some of them just whine and complain that no one should write a meal plan unless you're an RD, which I don't think is true. But yeah, to your point, I think it's just added a layer of like you can't just coach somebody on just nutrition. Like you can't just be a personal trainer and not consider nutrition. I think it's allowed me to view the human body as a whole and be able to understand how all these different stimuli, your nutrition, your training, cardio supplementation, sleep, stress management, like how all these things will come together to give you the desired outcome and how to manipulate, different inputs to get the desired outcome versus just looking at through the lens of just diet. Obviously, diet's going to be, a little bit of my bias because of my background and how important I think it is for getting those results. But it's allowed me to add in another layer. So I think it's done nothing but help me.
Being at the forefront of a nutrition expert and also being a coach to help people in all realms of life, how often are you seeing people on GLPs walk through your door or wanting to take GLPs?
Quite a bit. So I do some contract work for a hospital here in Texas. So I work with employee wellness, and I have a lot of people now that are coming through with GLPs. I think they're fantastic. I just think how they're being used is very poor. You get a lot of people that are coming through the door with a doctor wrote me a script and this will help me lose weight, and that's it. That's all the advice they're getting. There's very little regarding diet besides make sure you eat enough protein resistance train. I think I learned this from Dom Kuza, where he kind of put it out as like using a GLP will allow you to, it's like riding a bike with training wheels. Like you are finally able to make decisions regarding food without feeling like there's a war going on around you. You can actually like make clear, focused, and directed decisions around food, and actually like it's a time period to learn how to properly diet and build a sustainable lifestyle and it feel in control. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I hear a lot of friends and family and they hop on GLPs, and not that they're asking for my advice, but I hear them under that same umbrella of there's zero instruction. There's no manual that goes with them, and they're becoming so popular with no education behind them at all. Like you just said, they just get a script, they take it, and they think, okay, that's it. I just get less hungry, I eat less, and then I'll just lose weight. And the terrible part of them is whenever they come off of the GLPs, the data of the amount of people that get back to the original weight they were at or even surpass it is really tough. Like without that tool in their back pocket, they'll go right back to it because they didn't use it how you just said. I really like how you framed it as it is a tool, and it's not supposed to take the entire place of fat loss. How would you go about introducing somebody to a GLP? Like whenever they're taking it, what are some of the kind of the basics that you cover as far as things they should learn, things that should go along with it, in order to get the most use out of it?
Yeah, a lot of this will come down to kind of like what someone's learned before. Because I have people that are like kind of all over the spectrum, where I've got people that have like tried macro tracking in the past and they just like couldn't adhere to it. I've got people that are like coming to me from all I've done my entire life is eat out. So that framework depends a lot on like what the prior education they have around nutrition is. But I think the first place I think that like things need to change with it is just starting with like dosing. There's just these like arbitrary dosing guidelines, and everyone responds to these drugs so differently that I think it needs to be a more tailored approach, which I think we can, you can kind of do in the compounding realm. It's a little harder when, you just are getting a script from like your doctor directly, and they're just saying like, hey, I'm taking you up to the minimum clinical dose, because even some of those minimal clinical doses will absolutely nuke someone's appetite and give them a ton of side effects. So I think like the approach should be somewhere along the lines of like starting like a microdose and working your way up over weeks until you feel like you are comfortable, but not, getting all these side effects. And from there, it's really like teaching just, basic nutritional guidance, making sure you're getting enough protein, having balanced meals, meal timing throughout the day, so we're not having these digestive issues that come with the GLPs. But then from there, I think it's just learning to give some like behavioral guidance for people, having like a rating scale in terms of like how satiated are you before and after this meal, learning to delay meal timing so that we can kind of learn to live with hunger. Because I know a lot of people, like, we say we can take these GLP-1s forever. Cost is prohibitive to that for most people. So learning to just live with hunger, even if it's like slightly dampened because of the GLP. But being able to say, I'm hungry now. Let me wait 10, 15 minutes and then I'll eat. So slowly introducing some little tactics like that to be able to help people to learn good eating behaviors so that they eventually can have an exit strategy from these drugs.
Yeah, I was almost going to lead me to my next question of what is the exit strategy, but I guess the exit strategy in a way is just that. Like, it's just kind of like guidance on how to use them. And then whenever you come off of them, it's almost like, don't change anything. Like, you just learned how your satiation looks, how to wait between meals, how to not necessarily dive into your food noise or act on it immediately, kind of how to like live with it a little bit better.
Yeah. Something I tell people like with these is like, when you get like these cravings and stuff like that, just literally sitting with that a minute and being like, hey, it is totally normal to have a craving. It doesn't mean I need to act on it right away. And oftentimes if you give it 5-10 minutes and you're doing something, you're probably going to forget about it anyway. So I think that, but yes, back to your point, like an exit strategy, I think that tapering the drug is probably a better strategy for a lot of people. So we can kind of ease into these like higher signals of like food noise and hunger. Because going from 0 to 100 is, like you said, just setting people up to go back to that. It kind of eases you in to like rely on these new skills that you built of, rating your satiation, being able to delay eating when hungry. So that way, when the signals come back a little stronger, you can start to practice it a bit more and then taper off. And hopefully you've built the skill up enough to be able to sustain that long term.
Yeah. I wish this was more common as far as practice goes along with them. It's tough to watch from the background, also because obviously I'm not a clinician, so I have to watch on kind of what toes I step on. Like, I hear some of my even close friends that hop on it, and whenever they get it, they, back to your point about doses and stuff, they start at these super high doses. And he's like, yeah, like we have a strategy with he's like, I've talked to my doctor, and every couple of weeks, like whenever I go back, we're going to up the dose again. We're going to up the dose again. And I'm like, well, this is where I don't want to sit this. I don't want to step on any toes, but is it working for you currently? Like, is it helping? Like, why up the dose if you don't have to? Like, I love that approach of starting minimally, like starting at the lowest dose possible.
And I don't want to like dunk on, physicians here, because I really don't think it's entirely their fault. They are in a system that's overburdened and they don't have the adequate time to do sessions like this, like we can do in private practice. So like oftentimes the way that they get adherence is through like, they can't spend 10 minutes educating us. what they can do is give you enough of the drug to stop you from eating and get the desired outcome. So I don't think it's inherently like, I won't say it's great, but they are a little constrained in what they can do. And so they're looking for the best possible outcome, which usually comes from people are more likely to adhere to a script than they are to a diet. So they're going to lean into that a little more. It's just the way the system works right now, which is unfortunate, but it's the reality. So I'm not like tweaking people's doses when they come to me from their doctor. Again, it's just like me trying to, provide some education like, hey, I know you said you don't want to be on this drug forever. We need to start planning now towards that. These are the steps we need to take to get there. But to your like coming around the, kind of like system and how it's working, I do think it's going to come to a case where like coaches like us that have the knowledge base of this, we're going to have to step up to be able to provide that, because the insurance-based system it's just not working, and it doesn't have the capacity to handle that. So I think privatized, health coaching is going to be the future of managing things like that.
Exciting for us.
Yeah. I'm not complaining.
I want to give you any platform to announce, where the people can find you. You're obviously a knowledge bomb in this space. I love to hear everything you put out. Do you have anything coming up? Where can they find you and all the stuff in between?
Let's see. Instagram is the best place to find me. It's at Dillon Wells. I don't have anything huge coming up in the pipeline at the moment, but that's where you can find me as far as anything education based, consultations, working with me. You can reach out to me there to link up with me and work with me.